If you love pasta and you love mushroom, you're not gonna want to miss this video at all. And I'm gonna make a vegan pasta that is insane. If you love mushrooms, guys, this is a buffet for you plant heads out there. I wanna show you this 5 mushroom pasta. The 5 mushrooms that we're gonna do today is gonna be the shiitake mushroom, and shiitake gives you beautiful flavor. In fact, it creates the umami in the dish. The shimeji mushroom, this is going to create texture and flavor. The humble button mushroom, buttons are very light in flavor, but they give a nice texture and a nice flavor. And the grey oyster mushroom, and these are called Charles grey oyster, and this is grown in Malacca. A friend of mine grows it. Shout out to Indran. The king oyster mushroom, these are like your meat. This is like squid. It eventually gives you the texture of squid. We're going to cut it in half, and then we're going to score it like that. And the reason we're going to score it, we're going to get the flavor, we're going to get that flavor inside. I'm going to saute these mushrooms, but I'm going to saute them at different times. The big ones first and the small one later. So I'm going to do this mushroom saute. Mushrooms soak up a lot of oil. So what we want to do is get the pan on high heat, lock in all that flavor so the mushrooms don't absorb all that oil, which is something that's really important. We're going to start with the bigger mushrooms, flat side down, because I want to get that caramelization. For the grey oyster mushrooms, what I want to do is, I want to give it a light marination. So I'm going to marinate this a little bit. We're not going to cut this up because they got such a nice shape, you know. Look, it has that oyster style shape. So there's this homemade teriyaki marinade I made. I don't want to put a lot of this because if I put a lot, right, it's going to change the flavor of the pasta. And I don't want to do that. I don't want it to be a teriyaki pasta. So let's see how this is cooking. Let the pan do the work. That's sort of the color we want. That's what we want. While that's cooking over there, I want to do a little bit of salsa. I'm going to add a little bit of cashew nuts. And with that, I'm going to add a little of Chinese chives. I'm going to add a bit of salt. You can also use pine nuts, but I'm choosing to make a cashew salsa because cashew nuts have a nice flavor as well. Okay, now these king oysters have sort of doing their job now. So I'm just going to keep in the same pan, the mushroom juices are going to be there. I'm going to sort of add this grey oyster to the pan, the same pan. We're just cooking it at different times. And we're putting them skin side down. We want them to color a bit. And then we're going to add the shimeji mushrooms. As you realize, the only mushrooms I've seasoned are the king oyster. I will season the rest as we go. The reason if I put salt on now, it's going to release a lot of all the water. And then the mushroom's going to steam. What makes the difference between a good pasta and a bad pasta is the mushroom should be caramelized, not steaming, you know what I mean? Look at that caramelization. So that's going to give you that very meaty texture. Look at that, oh my God. Now I'm going to go with the shimeji mushrooms and the button mushrooms to finish up. And at this point I can add salt. This is when I can add salt. I'm mixing 2 types of salt. One is a smoked sea salt and one is a Himalayan pink salt. And to this I'm adding a bit of chili flakes. A little light pinch of chili flakes just to lift the flavor up. And the sauce today that we're going for is going to be an oil-based sauce. So what's important in an oil-based sauce is you want to infuse the oil. So I want to infuse the oil with garlic and rosemary. You have to be generous with the oil. Okay, so now that we've heated up the oil, we're going to put all this garlic and red onions. Can you see how that's bubbling inside? We want to get that flavor of that garlic and onions in there. I'm going to add 3 dried chilies actually, 3 dried chilies. So we don't want this to be spicy, but we want it to have a bit of heat to sort of complement the dish. Now I'm going to season it. So I'm going to season it at least with about 2 teaspoons of salt. He who masters the salt masters the kitchen and makes a happy family. The most important part of the process, which is actually the fun part, is seeing this combination go together. That is what you're looking for. The chilies have been roasted. So I'm going to lower the fire right now. And this is when I want to add the pasta. And I always reserve some pasta water. And how you know if it's a good pasta water, how do you know that it's the right pasta water? It's all the salt. It needs to be murky in color with the starch and the salt. It needs to taste like the sea. That's when you know you're gonna get good pasta. So I've already cooked the pasta, put it with a little bit of oil. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna add this pasta to this dish. And I've almost half cooked the pasta. I haven't fully cooked it because I want the residual heat of this to cook the pasta. So now I'm gonna toss all this together, and you got to toss it generously. Make sure that you get all the flavors into it. I'm gonna crank the heat up to high, and I'm gonna start to plate this dish. So now I'm gonna put this on the plate so this can feed at least 2 to 3 people. And I'm gonna get the mushrooms over, and I'm gonna put those mushrooms in the pasta. If I were to cook the mushrooms in the pasta, you won't get the different textures. Now at least you can enjoy these different textures and different flavors, so you feel like you've had a wholesome meal. It has all that lovely flavor and a bit of the chili that's gonna add an explosion of flavor there. Add tomato, and this is semi-dried tomato. Final part, which in the pestle and mortar I did, was that just drop over this cashew salsa. All right, plant heads, that's how you make a 5-type vegan mushroom pasta.